My name is Allison. I'm 20 years old now, and for as long as I can remember, I've known one thing to be true. In my family, I was never the priority. Not once. My parents, Danielle and Mark, have always treated my younger sister, Brielle, or Brie, as she likes to be called, like she was made of gold. I was the background character in our family movie. The helper. The fallback. The one expected to smile and stay quiet. Brie is 2 years younger than me, and somehow, that's always been her shield. Her excuse. Her golden ticket. She was still growing. Still learning. Still finding herself. But I was expected to have it all figured out before I turned 13. When Brie wanted the newest iPhone, she had it in 3 days. When I asked for a basic replacement for my phone, which couldn't hold a charge for more than 5 minutes, I was told to save up and learn the value of money. I did. I worked extra shifts at a local diner during high school, washing dishes and bussing tables just to buy a used phone. No handouts. No praise. No support. Just a pat on the back and a list of chores waiting at home. That was the norm. And it wasn't just about material things. When I won first place in an architecture design competition, something I had poured months into, my parents didn't show up for the ceremony. I told them about it 3 weeks in advance. They said they had errands. Errands. On the biggest night of my life. I stood alone on that stage with my trophy, smiling for pictures that a friend's mother kindly took. I sent them to my parents. They didn't even respond. 3 months later, Brie entered a regional dance competition. She didn't win. She placed second. But my parents? Flowers. Balloons. Dinner at her favorite restaurant. A Facebook post calling her their rising star. They talked about it for weeks. You'd think she won a Nobel Prize. And I just sat there smiling. Numb. It wasn't jealousy. It was grief. A deep, aching sadness. Because no matter what I achieved, I was always second. Sometimes, I wondered if I even ranked at all. It only got worse with time. Brie didn't just get special treatment. She lived above the rules. When she knocked over our mailbox with Dad's car, before she even had a license, they laughed. Well, at least she didn't crash into the garage, they joked. When I accidentally left a dish in the sink, my mom gave me a 30-minute lecture on respect and responsibility. And then came the household double standard. By 12, I was doing my own laundry, helping cook dinner, and vacuuming the house weekly. Brie? She'd leave clothes all over the floor, and I was expected to pick up after her. You're so responsible, my mom would say. Help her. She'll learn one day. But one day never came. And the only people who saw it, who really saw me, were my grandparents. Especially my grandfather. My grandfather, Henry, wasn't a man of many words. But when he spoke, you listened. And when he looked at you, really looked, you felt seen. He was the first person in my family who actually asked me what I wanted out of life. Not what would look good or make the family proud. He wanted to know what made me feel alive. I told him, architecture, buildings, lines, the harmony between form and function. It made sense to me in a way people didn't. I wanted to create something lasting, solid, safe, like the kind of place I never had at home. And instead of brushing it off or nodding politely, Grandpa leaned forward and said, "Then that's what you'll do. You're going to build the future, kiddo. I believe in you." I was 15 when he told me he'd opened a college fund in my name. He said he didn't trust my parents to prioritize my education. He wasn't being cruel, just honest. They've got their heads somewhere else, he said. But I've got yours right here. He tapped his chest. That moment stayed with me. It was the first time I felt like someone was truly in my corner. Of course, the moment Brie found out about the college fund, she had a complete meltdown. She cried. She screamed. She accused Grandpa of loving me more. Why does Allison get everything and I get nothing? She sobbed in the house where she got everything and I got scraps. My parents rushed to console her like she'd been wounded in battle. My mom told her, "You're just as special. Grandpa just doesn't understand how things work." And I stood there, silent, watching my one lifeline turn into another fight about Brie. But I held on to Grandpa's words. And when things got too loud at home, too sharp, too suffocating, I'd spend weekends at my grandparents' place. Grandma would make warm cookies. Grandpa would help me sketch ideas for imaginary cityscapes. Their house felt like air, like quiet. Mine felt like walking on broken glass barefoot, praying not to bleed. Then came the day everything shattered. I was 17, 2 weeks away from submitting college applications. One night, I came home from work to find my mother standing in the kitchen, a credit card bill in her hand, face like a thunderstorm. Want to explain this? She snapped, waving the paper at me. I blinked. I didn't even have access to her card. There are hundreds of dollars in charges. Clothes, makeup, tickets. Don't lie to me. I was stunned. I told her the truth. I didn't do it. But she wouldn't hear it. Wouldn't even let me finish. You're the older one. You need to take responsibility for once in your life. That was when something in me cracked. I told her it was Bree. Everyone had seen the packages arriving daily. I even showed her Bree's Instagram, where she proudly modeled every outfit like she was some kind of influencer. And my mother? She didn't even flinch. How dare you invade your sister's privacy like that, she screamed. I raised you better than this. Bree, of course, was nowhere to be found, probably hiding in her room with noise-canceling headphones and a smug grin. My dad came home. I thought maybe he'd see sense. He didn't. He joined in, yelling about how ungrateful I was, how they worked so hard, and this was how I repaid them. That night was chaos. Screaming, accusations, slamming doors, and me sobbing in my room with a trash bag half full of clothes, dialing the only person I could still trust. Grandpa. I choked out when he picked up. They blamed me for something I didn't do. Again, I can't take it anymore. He didn't hesitate. Pack a bag. I'll be there in the morning. And he was. 7 a.m. sharp. He didn't come inside. Just stood on the porch, arms crossed, and stared down my father. She's coming with me, Grandpa said. She deserves better than this circus. My dad tried to argue. My mom cried and said I was being dramatic. But Grandpa didn't move. If you cared about her at all, you wouldn't treat her like garbage, he said, eyes cold as steel. I walked past them both with my suitcase. Didn't look back. That was the last time I lived under their roof. Living with my grandparents was like stepping out of a nightmare and into real life. For the first time in years, I could breathe. There were no shouting matches over nothing, no passive-aggressive remarks about how I should have been more like Bree, no walking on eggshells. Just calm mornings, warm food, and people who actually asked how my day was and waited to hear the answer. I threw myself into school, work, and art. My grades shot up. My portfolio grew. My confidence, after years of erosion, started to return. Grandpa would check in every evening. Still drawing those crazy buildings, huh? He'd say with a wink. And I'd laugh, because yes, I was. I finally had space to dream. He reminded me often that the college fund was there, that he'd built it for me, that he'd do anything to make sure I got where I needed to go. You've already got the brain, he said. Now you've got the launch pad. I didn't touch a cent that first year. Thanks to a partial scholarship and working nights at a local cafe, I made it through. I wanted to hold off on using the fund as long as I could, maybe even make it last all 4 years. But life has a sick sense of timing. My second year came. The scholarship ran out. Rent climbed. Food prices jumped. I had to decide, keep killing myself juggling 3 jobs, or finally dip into the fund my grandfather spent years building for me. So I logged in. It was a quiet night. Midnight. I remember the way the room looked, papers on the desk, coffee gone cold, soft jazz playing from the speaker. I entered the account info and stared at the screen. $5,147.34. I blinked, closed the tab, reopened it. Same number. Refreshed. Same. It was supposed to be 55,000, not 5. My first thought was, there has to be a mistake. My second was, no way. The next morning, I walked into the bank with shaking hands. And that's when everything came crashing down. The woman behind the desk explained it plainly. The money hadn't disappeared all at once. It had been leaking month after month, transaction after transaction. I asked for the transaction history. And when I saw the names on the withdrawals, my heart stopped. Danielle and Mark Reynolds. My parents. They had been listed as secondary beneficiaries. Probably something Grandpa added for convenience or emergencies. A formality. They took that formality and bled the account dry. I couldn't breathe. I sat there in that cold bank chair, holding the printout with all the proof, all the stolen time, stolen effort, stolen dreams, and I wanted to scream. Not just at what they'd done, but at how unsurprised I was. This wasn't some accident. This was betrayal. By people who gave me life, and then stole the life I was trying to build. I held that printout for hours. Not just physically, it was seared into my brain like a scar. The dates, the amounts, the slow bleed of my future, stolen piece by piece under my nose. And I couldn't stop thinking about Grandpa, how he'd sat next to me at that old oak table, telling me you wanted me to have a real chance. How he said, "Don't let anyone hold you back." He trusted them. He believed they'd never stoop that low. They did. And now he was gone, and I was alone with the mess. I gave myself one night to fall apart. Just one. Then I picked up the phone. My mom answered like nothing was wrong. "Hey, sweetie. How's school?" I didn't even respond to the fake cheer in her voice. "Why is the college fund empty?" I asked, cold and flat. Silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" I saw the transactions. I spoke to the bank. "I know it was you and Dad." Her voice shifted in an instant, from fake sweetness to brittle defensiveness. "We didn't think you'd need it anymore," she snapped. "You had that scholarship. You have the house. We thought." "You thought what?" I said. "That you could spend $50,000 that wasn't yours?" "On what?" She hesitated. Just for a second. Then, with a tone that still makes my blood boil, she said, "It was for Bree's Sweet 16. I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. "You're telling me you used my college fund? On balloons, cake, and some glittery Instagram circus?" "It wasn't just the party," she said, like that made it better. "There was the venue, the caterers, the car, the family trip." "You mean the one I wasn't invited to?" I cut in. More silence. Then she sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "You didn't need that money anymore. You were doing fine. And a Sweet 16 only happens once." There it was. The sentence that told me everything I needed to know about how little I meant to her. I hung up. No yelling. No begging. Just click. I sat in silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then I opened a browser tab, found a local family lawyer, and scheduled a consultation. The next day, I walked into that office with every document I had, the bank statements, the will, my ID, and a memory full of rage. The lawyer, a woman named Camille, read everything carefully, then looked up at me. "This isn't just unethical," she said. "This is theft. You have a case. A strong one." I didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." And just like that, I went to war. The legal process was brutal. My parents were served the paperwork within a week. And within 3 hours, I got a call from my mother. Not an apology. Not even an explanation. Just pure, blind panic. "What are you doing? Are you out of your mind? You're tearing this family apart." I said nothing. "Do you know what this will do to us?" Yes, I did. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt for years, ignored, powerless, voiceless. But this wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. "You stole from me," I said, calmly. "Now you're going to pay it back." She started crying, wailing about betrayal, about how I was being cruel, about how I was destroying the family. Not a single word of remorse. I told her to speak to my lawyer. Then I hung up again. That night, the phone didn't stop ringing. My aunt, my uncle, even distant cousins, all parroting the same line. "How could you do this to your parents?" No one asked what they had done to me. Not a single one of them asked why I had to file a lawsuit in the first place. Why I was forced to fight for what was rightfully mine. All they saw was their perfect image of the family fracturing, and they blamed me for the cracks. But I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Because this time, I had power, and I wasn't giving it up. The weeks that followed were exhausting, legally, emotionally, and mentally. My parents didn't take the lawsuit seriously at first. They ignored letters from my lawyer, missed deadlines, and acted like it would all blow over. Like everything else. Like I'd come crawling back, like always. But I didn't. When the first court date was set, reality hit them like a brick wall. They hired a lawyer, some family friend who tried to spin the whole thing like a misunderstanding. That's when the excuses started. We didn't know the account was only for her. It was a gift to the family. She never said she was still planning to use it. Camille, my lawyer, shut it down instantly. She was a shark in the courtroom, calm, ruthless, and precise. Every time my mother tried to twist the narrative, Camille pulled out documentation. Every time my dad tried to guilt-trip the judge, she showed transaction logs, timelines, and account clauses. I watched my parents squirm, not just in front of the court, but in front of themselves. And finally, a judge looked them in the eye and said, "You owe your daughter $48,500. Pay it back, or face legal consequences." They didn't have the money, of course. So they started scrambling. First went Bree's car, the very one they bought with my stolen future. They sold it within a week. Then came the electronics, the savings bonds, my dad's collector watch, and eventually the damn furniture. Every time I got a payment notification, it felt like a piece of balance being restored. Vindication. They thought I'd never fight back, that I'd stay quiet forever, that I'd carry the burden of their decisions and smile through the wreckage. But now, I was the storm. Of course, Bree wasn't exactly graceful through all of this. She started blowing up my phone with message after message. "You're ruining my life. You're just bitter. Why are you doing this to me?" To her. Because in her world, nothing exists outside her reflection. I never replied. I didn't know her anything. Not answers. Not peace. Not understanding. She had feasted on my silence for years. But I was done starving myself for her comfort. My mom tried her own tactics. One day it was crying. The next, manipulation. She texted me, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I stared at the screen. No, I wouldn't. The truth was, I had already grieved them, years ago. I grieved the parents I wished I had. The ones who should have stood beside me when I held my first trophy. Who should have said, "We're proud of you," even once. What they lost wasn't just the money. It was me. And they would never get that back. Once the final payment plan was signed, once the court dates were behind me and the paperwork was filed, I sat alone in the house my grandparents left me, and I just breathed. No more begging to be heard. No more apologizing for existing. No more guilt over putting myself first. I looked around that living room. The same one where Grandpa once helped me sketch blueprints, where Grandma always kept cookies in a jar by the fireplace. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe. It wasn't just a house. It was mine. The last thing I did was change my number. I blocked my parents. I blocked Bree. I deleted every text, every voicemail. I deleted the wait. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred, but that silence didn't last on their end. A few weeks later, my mom called me from an unknown number. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Bree's starting college. Things have been really hard lately. We're just asking for a little help, just until we get back on our feet." Help. After stealing from me. After dragging me through the mud. After making me the villain in my own family's story. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat at my desk, looked at my calendar full of architecture internship interviews, and laughed. Really laughed. The irony was rich. They spent my college fund on Bree's birthday and a luxury vacation. Now, they were broke. And Bree, the golden child, the girl who never had to lift a finger, was working part-time at a coffee shop, making lattes and wiping counters. She hated every second of it. My mutual friend sent screenshots of her Instagram stories, vague complaints, self-pitying captions, cryptic quotes about betrayal, and family stabbing you in the back. The girl who once had a car bought with my future now took the bus to work. And I was thriving. I had secured an internship at a boutique architecture firm downtown. I was finishing my junior year with a 3.9 GPA. I lived alone, independently, in a home full of light, filled with drawings, late-night tea, and peace. They say revenge doesn't heal you. Maybe that's true. But justice? Justice clears the air. Justice makes space for healing. My parents didn't just lose a legal battle. They lost me. The daughter who cooked their meals, washed their dishes, kept her head down while they sang Bree's praises. And Bree? She lost her pedestal. Now she had to live like the rest of us, without shortcuts, without applause for mediocrity. Do I feel guilty? No. They taught me that blood is a chain, not a bond. That family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up for you, who believes in you, who protects your future instead of spending it. Grandpa showed up. They didn't. So I'm done. This isn't a sad story. It's a survival story. And I survived.